The GovX show is supported by Forrester, helping government organisations perform at their best. Visit forrester.com to learn more. Hi and welcome to another episode of the GovX show. I'm Tim Coulthard and my guest today is Brett Gibson, who's the Strategy and Value Consulting Manager for Domo, the business cloud experts. We're really excited that Domo are partnering with us for the event in November when they join us as the official government data stream partner. As you might expect, government data is very high at the agenda of many public sector transformation leaders. So it's great to talk to people who really know what's going on in that space right now. Domo have worked with lots of public sector organisations, so Brett was well placed to talk to us about where the challenges are in public sector data, what the potential use cases might be, and where the future takes it. Join me at the end when I'll share the information around how you can join the sessions that Domo are taking part in and really up your game in terms of public sector data use. But in the meantime, here's Brett. So Brett, welcome to the GovX show.
Thank you very much. Really excited to be here.
Great stuff. We're delighted to have you here, and we're going to talk a little bit about your work and about Domo and about some of the big juicy topics around public sector data and technology. But before we do that, it'd be really interesting to sort of find out more about you as a person, maybe your journey, both sort of personally and professionally to where you are today, with the kind of key points along the way.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess personally, at the moment, I'm feeling a little bit two-dimensional because outside of work, apart from the occasional jog through London parks, I'm finishing off an exec MBA, which is consuming my life at present. But the journey to where what I'm now doing, which is strategy for Domo in Europe and looking after value consulting, is really on the technology side and the technology as it relates to government and enterprise. So it's been a little bit winding in that starting off, I actually started off in charity work and was a director of a charity in Australia that was focused on youth leadership. That then turned into a bit more technical work in enterprise resource planning, software, particularly around local government and healthcare, through to sales, through to product management, spent a lot of time in data analytics around the South Pacific, and then into more value consulting and realizing that you can implement technology, you can sell technology, you can buy technology, but it's how do you realize value from not just the technology, but the data and the people that's enabling. So spent a little bit of time in the value consulting, value engineering space before recently being promoted within Domo to look after European strategy.
Great stuff. Traditionally, people might have seen a journey that took a career from working with young people in a charity to a sort of tech role as unusual, but actually there's a thread there now that makes perfect sense, which is about realizing results and impact with people as opposed to the tools you're working with, I guess.
And exactly. And I think what was interesting was being able to see very direct results within a charity and that being very meaningful to how do you scale that? It actually started off, I helped plan and design a 4-year global information system strategy within the charity. And how do you operate a charity that at that point had 120,000 members across 75 or 80 different countries, and realizing that actually you needed to be able to deliver an experience that the very developed countries infrastructure-wise, in terms of Japan, the US, Germany, how could they use data and technology versus how could you enable people in West Africa who maybe had rationed internet access on campus or via shared services, and then realizing that, you can have an impact, but you can scale that impact through technology and data.
Yeah. It's the opportunity and potential is limitless, which I think is what so many people that we talk to in this space share is that excitement about the impact and the potential where they can really meaningfully change lives, which is a fantastic thing to be able to talk about. We're going to segue a little bit into the sort of present day. We're really excited that Domo is also going to be partnering with us for the Gov data stream as part of GovX Digital in November. There's a lot to unpack there, and we've sort of spoken previously about how big a topic that is potentially. So conscious of the fact that we don't want to sort of open Pandora's box and never be able to put everything back in it. What's your sort of overview in terms of how would you characterize the way government organizations use and approach data right now, appreciating the fact that it can vary significantly, but are there any kind of key regular themes that you see occurring again and again?
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's very mixed. There are very clear use cases where data and technology is heavily used, and when we think about the big technology conferences and you hear the impact of data and analytics over tax and health delivery and law enforcement and intelligence, where there's a huge investment in the technology, but there's also a very big payoff. And that's very sophisticated stuff. I think what's really interesting, though, is most of the conversations I have is with those organizations who would love to be there, but just don't have the endless amounts of money and expertise that it takes to run those. But looking at how you run a big system like that, and then saying, well, how do we get the same impact on a smaller basis, or just using fewer resources to get there? That normally comes from organizations who are starting to connect their people to their data, because government in particular is very people driven. It's people and it's assets, and it's how do we make sure that resources are optimized and decisions are equitable but also impactful, with that idea that we really have to be careful with public money because budgets are tight. So I think the reality of when I talk to government, it's people with very good intentions trying to do great things, sometimes thinking in slightly dated technological terms, because there isn't the same level of funding and innovation budget that the corporate customers and publicly listed or private companies have to invest in technology and people. And so I think that'd be my take on where government is.
Yeah. And what kind of organizations are you talking to, through Domo? Is it pretty broad, or is there certain types of organizations you tend to work with more than others?
So very broad. We started off very much in marketing and advertising, very private sector, because it was lots of data. If you think Facebook and Google and website analytics and mobile analytics, and it's how do you bring together a lot of these ecosystems into one place where you're getting up-to-date information, but you don't have to spend the time maintaining APIs to Facebook that constantly change and without warning. Been there, done that, lived it. And it was also very direct and tangible, in that if we could start bringing these data sets together, we can make good decisions and save money or make more sales. That's evolved to where it might be connecting 44,000 different accounts for a global CPG. It might be a massive retailer with 1 trillion rows of data. And now I think getting to, we've made it easy to connect big data, but for government, we've made it easy to connect all of your data. And so we deal with publicly owned railway companies, with states on their COVID response, on public expenditure and contracts. We're working with local government authorities, and really it's anyone who previously looked at BI and big data as having these drawbacks of a lot of feeding and watering and technical expertise that's required, a lot of setup because you're dealing with lots of different systems. And it's realizing that actually if you can use a platform that makes it really easy to connect data, is handled for you, and you can operate at any scale and start collaborating, then there's value. So that's who we talk to now.
Okay. And as we said at the beginning, it's a huge topic, and I guess it can seem sort of a daunting thing, shell to crack. What are some interesting kind of use cases or examples where maybe you sort of pull back the curtain a bit for an organization that sort of sees data as this huge, mountain to climb, and actually chipping away at some smaller examples might be the way to start to prove the case, deliver some benefit, get buy-in from the rest of the organization. What kind of examples would be good for people to see there?
Yeah, so normally I would say let's approach it with the sort of assumption that any answer that only requires one system of record, that is only going to come from one data set or data source, has probably been answered sufficiently. Yeah, we've squeezed that stone and there's nothing else coming out of it. So now it's about how do we start getting some wins where we can connect a few different resources or a few different data sources together, and they may be operating at different speeds. So something may be operating on a monthly cadence, something else is probably captured via a form and lives on a spreadsheet or a Dropbox somewhere. We may be connecting some people or some asset data, and that provides access. Really quick examples of where that could operate is, how do we know where all of our assets are and where the next jobs are likely to be? So in terms of just resource planning, because it's not often easy that your asset system is connected to your service delivery system. And so how do we plan to make sure that actually we have got those resources together, or where we are constantly sharing data, but it's across spreadsheets. And so there's emails being sent and there's shared drives that are being used. But actually what we're looking to do is automate the update of that, because I spend far too long trying to comb through data from 3 different spreadsheets plus my finance system. A really quick win to say, we can automate that. Do you need that on a 15-minute basis or every hour or every day? And we can productionize that very quickly, so people are doing the analysis and the high value tasks rather than the copy and paste.
Yeah, and I guess one of the benefits is to, as you say, sort of automate the mundane stuff, so that the brain power and the imagination or the sort of creative part of the people that are working in the organization is devoted to real value-adding tasks that are potentially transformational.
And I think it's also where you have a couple of data sets that people use for different purposes. Having implemented and been around ERP during council amalgamations, or where we're digitizing registries, there was a lot of workflow built in and streamlining, which is great, but often it's for a particular purpose, and it's to get data into a shape and to close a transaction. But it's not a workflow that enables the next question and how do I sort of build off this. And so if we can build a bit of a data spine, which in large part is already created through some of these ERP or case management systems, but then we can start connecting it to the other data that says, well, actually, what are we doing around policy, and how are we improving this from a customer outcomes point of view by connecting customer satisfaction or NPS scores. Actually, yeah, that's a really quick win, because we've got most of the data we need. Now we just need to keep that updating with this other rich data that we can collect from elsewhere.
Yeah, so it's a good example where 2 data sets that are fairly transactional, when mapped against each other or connected, suddenly become something that feels quite transformational and quite impactful. And we're starting already to talk about outcomes and people's perceptions, and you can see how small steps can start the journey quite quickly.
Absolutely, and it's the quickly that's the important part, because public sector doesn't have the luxury of I think what we experienced when I first started working in the sector, which is very long lead times, and the pace of change that was expected was quite slow. I think now there's a lot more expectation on being able to implement quickly. COVID-19, I mean, we're all literally sick of it, but we've understood that the questions that we asked a year ago aren't necessarily the questions we need to ask now. And the sooner we can respond with informed, confident decision making that can update as the data changes, that puts us in a much better spot in meeting the expectations of the people that fund us in our community.
Absolutely. We're privileged to get to talk to lots of people working in and around the public sector, and that idea of sort of more agile government, more appetite to move at speed, it's been partly driven by necessity, as you said, but if we looking for sort of silver linings, then an appetite for a bit more risk taking and a bit more innovation at pace could be a really good outcome from 2020, where not many good outcomes seem to be coming forth.
And that's going to be hard, because there has been money spent in certain areas, but in a lot of the cases it's on service delivery. It's not going to be on back office. It's not going to be on some of the enabling policy. It's been spent on responding. I think what's going to be challenging is absolutely we've now reset a bit of an expectation on agility. It's how do we implement that given some of the other constraints we're working within.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the exciting part for why I've led Domo into the public sector space within the UK, is because actually there are far better ways of being able to respond quickly and with very low startup resourcing and investment to get these outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to fast forward a couple of weeks, and when we get to the event and bringing together hundreds of public sector leaders from central government, local government. You've got a couple of sessions lined up with Domo and data-driven government and agile government. Interested to find out what you're going to be sharing. What are you looking forward to communicating to our audience that maybe can sort of be informative or inspirational for them to go back and start to rethink the way they're doing things?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, really looking forward to it. It's hard to believe it's only a couple of weeks away. I think that the key discussion points and what we're going to be sharing is around how do you manage the complexity within government to become data driven. And I think it's not just the complexity, it's the complexity mixed with the process and the probity that needs to be applied to public data. And so how do you manage that complexity while you're also trying to shift a bit of a culture from a gatekeeper mentality to more of a shopkeeper mentality? And that's a cultural shift that needs to be enabled by data. There's also the agility and how do you respond, not just within a program area or a policy or a delivery area, but how do you respond with agility across teams and across departments? And really excited to share some of the work that's been done around within some of the states in the US around their COVID response, connecting up 10 different departments and health services within 48 hours and delivering insight to governors in 72 hours across a dozen departments. That is unheard of. That's the agility that we need to be talking about. Now, there was a burning platform there, and not every project's going to have the effort, the resource, the willingness to do that, but it is agility across teams and across departments and community facing that's going to be necessary. So looking forward to sharing that.
Fantastic. And in the same spirit of sharing and giving, one of the things we're doing, working with so many people from different organizations, different countries, different focuses, is finding out resources that are really useful to them and inspirational. So whether that's books or podcasts or articles. So putting you on the spot, what sort of floats your boat? What would you recommend that our audience check out?
I guess from a plug point of view, Domo has released a series. It's a video series with really interesting speakers on curiosity. And it's not a Domo oriented conversation at all. It's about talking with heads of analytics for McKinsey and people in public sector and corporate leaders around what curiosity means and how enabling curiosity can actually be used. So that's the plug, and I think it's a brilliant series. It's a vodcast in effect, eight episodes. So that's the now. If you're looking for multimedia, if you're looking for reading, I came across a book in some of the research around my master's that I'm doing now, and it was Graphic Methods for Presenting Facts.
Okay.
And it's Willard C. Brinton wrote it, and it was published in 1914.
Okay.
So it is not current news. And it is available in the US Library of Congress, so you can read the entire thing free online.
Wow.
But I think that's fascinating because it shows how much has changed in our understanding of data and the application of it, but also shows how little has changed because it's about how do we communicate for impact? How do we share facts that actually enable better decision making rather than he's got a great quote in there about the most prepared man has come undone because of some ignoramus who ignored, because the prepared man actually didn't have the prepared data ready to compete against bias of someone ignorant in a decision-making capacity. And I think that's the fascinating backward look of what's the same, but what's changed.
I love that. I think I'm certain you've taken the prize for the most historic recommendation. Lots of these recommendations have, not surprisingly, focused on forward-looking views of data and how the world's going to change. But as we all know, you learn a lot about the future from looking at the past. So maybe that makes you the wisest contributor of all to still be looking at these kind of eternal truths of human nature and how we think and act, and that take away the artifice of technology. Maybe there's just a core that never changes. I don't know.
And probably shows you how much I was procrastinating from some of the master's research that I was willing to go through books from 1914.
Yeah, you literally just picked out every book you could. Yeah, that's pretty much how I would work in a sort of academic way. So yeah, I feel that. That's a great one. So we'll put that in the list, and we'll also put links to the vodcast series about curiosity as well, because again, it's a fascinating topic, and people's conception of these, what can seem quite abstract concepts, actually are really revealing and useful.
And I think when we talk about agile government and data-driven government, curiosity is this thing that, unfortunately, in large organizations and bureaucracies, has been slapped out of people. People have been trained out of being curious because they're told, you're not allowed to use the data. We don't have the data. We can't answer that question right now. It's not a priority. Really, I mean, curiosity is the thing that is going to drive us forward. It is thinking about new ways of working and better ways of service delivery that cater to community, that mean that if we're not enhancing and encouraging people's curiosity, we're just not going to move forward at the pace we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we wrap this up, we do a sort of quick fire round, /hot takes, whatever you want to sort of call it. The event's obviously built around some big concepts and streams, and so we're always interested to find out what those ideas mean to different people. Some people reject outright the idea of government technology being a thing anymore. It's really interesting how people respond to these. So if I can throw a few of these at you and you give me your sort of off-the-cuff immediate response to what they mean to you, I think it'd be interesting to see where we go with this.
Sure, yeah, let's go.
I'll take a deep breath. Right, buckle up, and here we go for the first one. So we'll start with transformation.
I think transformation is possible. I think, and it's not inevitable, but it is possible. Or at least it's not inevitable that transformation is good. So I think it's that with the right amount of passion and the right enablement and the right focus on what are we trying to achieve, transformation is eminently possible. It's the conversation starter of how do we do it well.
Yeah, I like that. Interesting about, well, is transformation always the outcome you're after, which it's become this kind of hallowed concept, but maybe sometimes keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I sort of think back to the hacker ethos, and it was up on Facebook's wall of move fast and break things. Well, sometimes when it comes to democracy or people's rights and privacy, you don't want to be breaking these things. It's very hard to put it back together. So it does need to be considered, but transformation can be very powerful and very positive if it's harnessed correctly. Let's ask the question first.
Yeah, great stuff. Service excellence.
Service excellence is not just about consistency. I think when I was involved in a shared service center implementation, so it was a government contact center across all strands of government services. I think there was 27 departments it was covering, and 1 million calls would go through this. And what was interesting about that was we were using some real-time analytics to understand text and sentiment. So are we routing the calls the right way? Are we answering the questions? Could we create a self-service process because people are asking the same questions? We can move online. But the main focus when we were setting, or when that system was being set up, and I say the system, the contact center was being set up, was about consistency and the high level of consistency and equitable access. And that was important. But actually, sometimes we also need to look at what's the next iteration of, it's not consistent, but it's actually what's being asked for. So I think service excellence is possible, but it's not just about consistency. It's also about improvement.
Okay. People and teams.
People and teams are crucial. And I come from a kind of more analytical background where the data can speak to fixing solutions, and I very quickly realized that data doesn't fix things. People fix things, and they fix it better if they're using data. But the decisions, the processes need to occur taking in the skills and talents and expertise of multiple people. And the faster you can engage them, the more of a common view you can give teams and people, the better the outcome is going to be. So I think people and teams are crucial. Let's enable the collaboration. If you can enable that collaboration around the data, even better.
Great stuff. And slightly related note, inclusion.
I think inclusion is a fundamental, a foundational element to it, and it needs to be considered in the design of the processes that you're putting in. I love the fact that this conference is a DICE certified.
That's right. Yeah, we're really proud of that.
And I think inclusion is about recognizing that we need to adopt insights and views from outside the status quo, because the status quo has been built around a society and community needs that don't exist anymore. We're constantly evolving. So build from the ground up that every decision you're making is thinking about how we include people in the decisions, in the data we're using, in the program design.
And the last couple, government data, which we've probably covered to a large degree, but if I was going to give you a couple of lines to really sum it up.
I'm always excited by government data because it's rich. Like, it is very rich. I think if I look at the data that we talk about with our more private sector customers, there's a lot of data there, but it's very rarely rich. And these companies spend a lot of money trying to build a richness around customer analytics. And the ones that do it well do very well. I think you know the names. But government data by default, because it is dealing with a lot of complexity and people within our community, it's rich. It can be hard to come by. But when you think about the amount of case notes and interactions we have with the public, that presents a lot of opportunity for making better decisions, because you're not just using it at a superficial level.
And the last one is GovTech.
So I have realized in the UK, GovTech is about incubating startups and what that looks like, which is quite different to the perspective I thought about GovTech in Australia. And I think GovTech as a concept is good, because we do need to think about any government, any technology and systems that have been designed with government in mind. But I think government services are so broad and unique that you end up with a lot of very specialized systems that you can struggle to get your head out of the parapet and see the forest for the trees. So I think GovTech is important, but it's very niche, and it's how do we make this coordinated and give us the visibility across all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of sessions on GovTech and the idea of the way the government's role is changing. It's not simply an end user or a customer, but actually there's a very interesting role to play in supporting and encouraging the startup culture, accelerating promising projects. So it's interesting to hear that you see it in that way as well, and you've picked up on that.
And I think what's really interesting is when you think about what are the benefits of a startup community that's focused on government, and it doesn't even have to just be startups, but it's what's the commitment level of people who want to innovate to government and improving government outcomes, and using some of the energy and the passion for something that's not just for profit to invest and co-invest. I know, we sort of deal with a lot of startups and it's how we enable them, but it's also they're doing some really great things. I think our commitment from a Domo point of view is how can we collaborate with early engagement to really understand what customers, government departments and agencies need, but also that, we can put some skin in the game. We can work out very quickly whether something's going to work or not. And you don't have to spend the 6 months, the 12 months with a major top 5 American company to get these great outcomes, because there are much smaller companies that are willing to co-invest to work out what's going to work for government.
Yeah, fantastic. It's exciting to see the landscape changing in that way. I think it's going to benefit everybody that there's so many more diverse perspectives, technologies. It's exciting times, and we're really looking forward to exploring some of that when we get together in November.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. It's been fantastic talking, and cannot wait for some of the panel sessions and streams to hear what people in government are doing and contributing.
Well, Brett, it's time for me to let you go. So I'll just round off by saying we're looking forward to working with you in November. We'll share information about your sessions in the show notes, and I'll let the audience know how they can sign up. But in the meantime, we'll see you in November, and thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. See you then.
So thanks again to Brett Gibson from Domo for joining me for the conversation today. As I mentioned at the beginning, Domo are the official partner of the government data stream at GovX Digital 2020. They're taking part in a couple of really interesting sessions that I wanted to flag with you now. It's free to sign up, so I'd urge you to go and get involved. The first of those is Data-Driven Government on the 17th of November at 3 p.m. As well as Brett sharing his insights, we have Keith Dargy, who is from the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service at the Scottish Government, Barry Lowry, who is from the Department of Expenditure and Reform in Ireland, and Carlos Rivero from the Commonwealth of Virginia in the US. They're all CIOs, so have huge experience and insights to share with us. And the second session that Domo are taking part in as part of the government data stream is on Agile Government, kicking off at 11 a.m. on the 18th of November. This also features Catherine Benjamin from the New York City Mayor's Office of the CTO, Terry Makewell from the UK Hydrographic Office, and Sally Meacham from the Centre for Digital Public Services, Wales. It's shaping up to be a fantastic session, especially for any public sector leader looking to harness the power of agile internet era techniques into their organisation. So click the show notes link below and sign up for free if you're a public sector executive. That's all from me for this episode. The episodes will be coming thick and fast as we build up to the event, so stay tuned in your usual channels for the next one. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.